Next up is the big one, the true beginning of the DCU. This is called Superman Legacy.
So I thought that really interesting because we were just addressing this. One of our viewers was asking,
what would they do?
I want to see a live action All-Star Superman, but obviously you don't want to start off a new canon with Superman dying. So the spirit, I think that's one thing that I think we can agree on. The spirit of the character that we want to see, the costume that we want to see is in here. The characters that we want to see.
What would be smart for James Gunn to take from that, besides the fact that you have a brilliant comics writer coming up with that, is, and we've talked about this before, you have a brilliant comics writer who gets it and isn't ashamed, which that I always bring that up. It's almost like, and even the MCU, which I think is very successful, there is a lot of superhero shame attached to these movies, and especially the DCEU, where it was Snyder's vision, where Snyder wanted them to be gods walking among us and these icons, and the way he desaturated everything and everything shot through a gritty lens and it's sort of blue filtered, and they mute the colors. Superman has got a maroon cape and this indigo blue, and you're like, what is that, man? And I had the problem with Nolan's Batman films where it's like, okay, the Joker literally paints his face every morning to freak people out. It's not about falling in a vat of chemicals because that's too weird. There's this shame to be full on, we're in that universe. And you look at 1978, that verisimilitude thing we talk about, and you have bright blue, red, and yellow. And the people of that world deal with it.
Yeah.
They accept it face on. That is a flying man with great powers who keeps helping us. Is anyone going to sit there and mock him for wearing red shorts on a blue unitard? Lex Luthor might, but I mean, that's a Luthor thing. But everyone else is just like, I don't care what you're wearing. I'm happy you're here. Yeah. So these movies need to stop being ashamed. And James Gunn, from the first thing he does over at Marvel, the color just blasted out of that thing where they're like going, even Captain America, except for the Avengers, which people complained about Captain America's outfit and the Avengers as being the worst out of all of them. And I was like going, I don't think the design is great, but if nothing else, Joss Whedon gave us a red, white, and blue and not a like olive drab or like dingy gray white. So I'm like, no, he just wears the colors of the fucking flag. Deal with it. So I like that James Gunn's like, no, man, embrace the fact we're in a comic book universe. And then he goes over to DC and does the Suicide Squad, and he's like, no, polka dot, man. Am I going to dance around that? No. So you're like going, God bless you for not being ashamed of that. Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman distilled everything pure Superman out of love and affection without being embarrassed. I just think that's the best thing you could take from it is, look, man, let's lean in to a superhero universe without having to couch it in irony and muted color. And I don't want to deconstruct. I just want to construct. I just want to build on what's there and give you pure Superman.
Odds on getting the red trunks with James Gunn. Superman.
Oh, good.
Very high. Very high odds.
Very high. I mean, the main reason I fought for the trunks, and listen, man, I fought for the trunks. It is about color distribution. The Flash even is in a red onesie, but they put that yellow belt in there just because then he's literally in a red unitard. So the thing with Superman, where it's all blue except for the S, and it just goes down to the red boots, I'm like going, that's a guy in a blue body stocking. The red is necessary to break up that straight blue color. And I know the origin of it is like circus strongmen back in the 30s. They often wore like leotards and then like trunks on top of them with the belt. And that was literally just back in the 30s. They're like, yeah, do that. Now give him a cape. Oh, cape looks awesome. So essentially, that's the original idea. But from an artistic viewpoint, something to break up that field of blue, very necessary. The only other thing they could possibly do is make the S so big that it's his whole chest and the point goes down his abs, because then you'd have this visual that is red and yellow and is breaking up. But I don't want an S that covers up his entire trunks. I mean,
I do want this back, though. Like, I do want
the yellow S on the back of the cape.
Yes, I want that.
You're never going to get it, Chad. You're never going to get it.
Odds on Big Yellow Key opening the Fortress of Solitude.
God damn it.
Probably not, right? Was
I
that is that too,
I
too
love
far?
78. I love Donner's movie. I
Yeah.
will say that even as a kid, I was like, oh, well, that's a way you could do the Fortress of Solitude, the big crystal things. But I'm like, that really doesn't look comfy. And it also looks like when you get inside of it, there's like no furniture until Superman 2, where he's got his big clamshell bed. You're like, what's in there? It's literally
Yeah.
just platforms. At least in the comics, you're like, there's an interplanetary zoo. Here's his
Mhm.
Kryptonian library. There's all this other stuff. I'm like, yeah, man, make that his fortress, his
I
place to
would.
hang out.
Yeah, I don't know about the big yellow key, but I would love to see that version of the Fortress of Solitude, where it's
I
more like
know
a
the big yellow
museum.
key is
Yeah.
yes, and I know the big yellow key is goofy. At the same time, the reason it's a brilliant concept is it's so baller. He doesn't hide the fortress in the comics. In the movie, it's more like, this is where I hide. In the comics, anyone that sent a helicopter across, the Arctic Circle would sit there going, look at that giant
Yeah.
golden door,
Yeah.
and I could just walk in. No, you can't. You can't get in there. And he even puts the key out in plain view, a giant golden key, and it's basically like, no one can lift it but me.
Yeah.
I love it. He's like going, anybody's welcome if you can get in, but
Yeah.
you can't. Flying up the key, chunk.
Yeah.
It's so goofy, and I love it.
Yeah.
We'll never get it, but I would be there.
So
I bet under James Gunn, I bet we get a crypto.
yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that. So what are the odds, do you think, on the Superman S,
Oh yeah.
which I want to be back on the game? Donner introduced the idea of that being their family crest, right? Wasn't that originally his idea? That was then carried over into the comics?
It may have been with the movie,
Because it
because I
wasn't
think
originally that.
before then, right? And I think that because literally 70, we're coming right off the Silver Age then, and we're going into the Bronze Age, and the Bronze Age didn't feel like explaining too much. There was a World of Krypton miniseries. There was one in the 70s, and there was also one in the 80s when they, after Byrne, changed everything. But I don't think they ever gave the S to Jor-El. He was still wearing that sun design that he always had on his chest,
Oh
and his
yeah,
cool red headband. Dude, he was
I
ready
do.
for the 80s.
I do love the idea, and I understand why it's
No,
been
it's a
carried
very
over.
good idea.
Even
Yeah.
even Zack Snyder's Superman had it.
The one
So I'm curious to know if James is going to do that.
the one change that Byrne made, which was actually kind of he went retro, because he did not keep that idea from Superman the movie.
Oh, he didn't.
Byrne had Clark saving people in normal clothes until he gets exposed by Lois. Like, people had heard about this fantastic flying man that saved people, and then he saves Lois when her space shuttle plane is about to crash, and the public mobs him, and he's just in normal street clothes, and they're like, "Who are you?" Blah blah blah. And so she's one of the first. She names him Superman because
As in
they
the
don't know
movie,
who he
yeah.
is.
Right.
And then Ma Kent makes him a costume.
Oh, based
And
on
she
that.
goes, I like that, what she called you, Superman. And that would, if you have an emblem like this, it'll distract people from wondering who you are, because now you are just Superman. So she goes, see, it's an S in the shield. And he's like, that looks great, Ma, thanks. So that was the 80s reverse. But I like the idea that, yeah, it wasn't meant to be an S. It's a Kryptonian symbol. It's the
Yeah.
House of L. And then, of course, the whole thing of like, it means hope,
Hope.
which was Mark Waid in Birthright. That then Zack Snyder stole that
Right.
for Man of Steel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are my glasses? Mm.
So, yeah.
But
It
I
would
like
be
that
nice.
idea.
I definitely think they should get away from the crystalline Krypton thing, because Superman and Lois has totally embraced that whole aesthetic too. It's basically
Sure.
they
Yeah.
basically are doing an extension of the Donner Superman in that show, which
Yeah.
is fine. But it's time to. I think it's time to do something new. They did a lot of things that were cool in that show, and the one of them, which we've already kind of alluded to unintentionally, was I think it's in the first episode, and he only wears a suit briefly, but for one scene he actually has the Fleischer.
No, that was the first episode. I saw that.
Yeah, the Fleischer Superman. He goes, "Oh, my mom made it for me." It looked
I
so
mean-
good. It's like, no, just keep that suit.
Actually did look really good. It was
Yeah.
very surprising, but also, I mean, it was very intentional in that episode
Oh,
where
yeah.
they're like going, we want to give you what you guys haven't gotten from Snyder. That's the thing, is that right there in that one encapsulate, and I remember after the episode aired, because I watched it and then everyone made it a meme. They're like, that's what we wanted this whole time. There's a kid who's excited to see him, and Superman he saves the day, but still has time just to walk over and chat with the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. And he's just like, he's totally just related. He's like going, that's a really cool suit. He's like, thanks. My mom made it for me. And you're just like going, the wholesomeness, I want to hug it. I want to hug that wholesomeness.
Yeah.
When I say that on public transportation, I get weird looks. But you get what I'm after when I say I want to hug that wholesome.
Yes. Yeah.